sort of how we've been starting is just sort of talking about what you're up to in terms of just balancing lacrosse. I think that's the biggest thing right now with lacrosse players. They're balancing somehow. They have to supplement their income, whether it's playing indoor or playing just strictly outdoor and coaching on the side or having another job. I guess during this Corona time, what have you been up to? What have you been balancing and juggling?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll jump into that right off the bat here. So my full-time job is, when I'm not playing lacrosse, it's I'm a school counselor. So I work at a school. So obviously when the whole COVID pandemic came about, we were working from home. And so it was, that within itself had its own challenges, but it actually gave me more time really just to kind of focus with no distractions around to focus in on lacrosse and my training, like my whole regimen, I was actually hopping on Zoom calls with my strength and conditioning coach from Frodham Prep where I coach at and work at. And he was doing these Zoom calls like 5 days a week. So that really got me like kickstarted during like the whole quarantine. And I just been following those. And now obviously as the season's getting closer here, it's incorporating more lax related training, goalie wise. So like hand-eye coordination, doing a lot of those types of drills. So I would say the balance is actually, I would say, worked in my favor here a little bit because with work, I could focus on that from 9 to 2 o'clock, 9 to 3 o'clock. After that, focus in like an hour or two just on lacrosse. So with no distractions, it's worked out, man. Seeing a lot of shots, I guess, as a goalie, that's been a little bit of the toughest part. But I have a guy who I usually train with from school. So he's like willing to get out there in the field. We can keep our social distance, obviously, and I can still get my work done. So it's been good.
That's one thing I kind of wanted to ask you about. So me personally, I had some injuries and I stopped playing did my third ACL in my sophomore year of college. Stopped playing my junior year. From there, I kind of like transitioned into like a student coaching role. And just like worked with the goalies a ton. So I'd be like doing all the individual drills with goalies, just doing like obviously tons of shooting stuff, be like with Coach Tillman and all the goalies at Maryland. And then with Corona and stuff like that, I was doing some stuff down here with Martin Bose. I'm not sure if you know him.
But yeah, we're playing against him.
Yeah, he's in the Boston area. And he was kind of just trying to look into getting some stuff together for kids to do on their own. And obviously for me, originally it was like, I could definitely help train some goalies with you. Before Corona hit, it was like I could definitely help train some goalies, like do some different shooting drills and stuff like that. But then like with Corona, we obviously couldn't be like meeting in person and stuff with these kids, especially when it started at the very beginning. It was worse. And I kind of like realized it's like tough to kind of get things, like at least from my perspective, like not being a goalie, it was kind of hard to find like good things for kids to work on as a goalie on their own, just by themselves. So from your experience and like what you're doing, what are some good things that you work on by yourself, just as far as being a goalie and when you just don't have anyone to find to shoot on you?
Absolutely, yeah. That's kind of the toughest part, right? Because you always, when you're getting shots, you need another person or two with you. So yeah. I've gotten that question a lot actually. I train a lot of goalies in my off time, and a lot of my guys who I've been working with reach out, even girls. It's both ways there. Both this position's the same for both men's and women. But I think the biggest thing is my cardio. The first and foremost thing that you can control is your strength and conditioning. Right. So I mean, like with your cardio and whatnot, and lifting weights or even body weight movements. So if you can do a lot of jump rope, I think jump rope is probably, man, since I began playing goalie when I had goalie trainers at like 12 years old. Jump rope. That's something you can do kind of working on your feet and your shoulders, right? And your foot speed, shoulders, and that's all kind of goes into that goalie position. So I was doing a lot of that, a lot of balance, a lot of core work, push-ups, sit-ups, planks, all that type of stuff, wall sits, stuff where I could work on my core. And also I always incorporate keeping my hands up, working on my shoulders. And that's like one thing, I wasn't the strongest kid by any means in college, but I would have strsuper strong shoulders just because I'm sitting in the cage with my hands up. So that strength and conditioning wise, cardio wise, you want to work on your foot speed, core, and kind of your shoulders. And I like to do my upper body, kind of doing all that. Now diving into the hand-eye coordination stuff, it's where you got to get a little bit innovative and you got to get a little bit tricky with it. What I was actually doing, I took a 45-pound plate, put it in a corner, and I can just kind of throw a ball at it, right, and work on my steps, working towards that. So that's something where I'm hitting all my spots, but I'm still stepping, attacking the ball, finishing square. So I'm working hand-eye just on that. Another thing that I love to do is you get to a wall, just grab a shorty or your goalie stick, and it's a pregame ritual that I have every single time. Not before every game I'm doing this, is just to get dialed, just seeing the ball, is just get to a wall, soft toss, hit your spot, step into it, take a shorty, then you work your way up to your goalie stick. So now, the difficulty is getting harder. If you can do it with a shorty, you can catch it with a short stick, you can absolutely catch it with a goalie stick. So that's like kind of some things that I've been doing by myself. I have a whole like wall routine that I'm actually putting together right now I got like a little goalie clinic, a little goalie brand that I'm kind of working on right now, doing some of that type of stuff. So yeah, that's some stuff that you can do. You can get anyone in the backyard. I've had my fiance literally taking a tennis racket and hitting tennis balls at me. So anything that I can do to kind of work on my hand-eye as well as my cardio and conditioning, that's what I've been trying to do like at least 5 to 6 times a week here.
And then I was asking my buddy Danny Dolan. He was in my grade at Maryland. He was our starting goalie my senior year. I was asking him some stuff that he was doing with his kids. And he was saying like the biggest thing that he was doing with them was just really having them like kind of focus on like the mental side of goalie stuff and just like imagining shots and just kind of like taking them through just different scenarios that he does in his head kind of. What's like, do anything like mentally that's like any like mental work, just spend if that's just like sitting on the couch for you, or do you do anything like specifically to kind of like think about lacrosse and think about goaltending like from a mental standpoint?
Yeah. So, another thing that I'm doing while I'm by myself drill-wise is I'll set up 5 cones, right? And it mimics my arc around there. So when I'm working on my cones, I'm on my, and I line them up 1, 2, 3, dead center, 4, 5. Pipe. 1 and 5 are your pipes. So you can literally work from pipe in your positioning to step, right? Just to move. Visualize your shot, visualize your movements. A guy coming around the corner, right? GLE. Or if you're up top at your 3, you go down to your 2. It's a kid, sweeping down the alley. Righty there and shooting there. So I'm visualizing setting up in that spot, getting down to another spot, and now I got to make my movements, whether that's an off hip, low, bounce shot, whatever it may be. So mentally I'm going through my reps there. That you do it for, 20 minutes, you're getting a ton of reps in there. And you're getting mental reps as well. So I'm working on my mechanics as well as my conditioning with that, right? And again, my core, my sitting up, it's not easy when you got to stand in your goalie position and you're doing all those drills a bunch. So that what I would say is one way that I train my mental part of it. Another big thing, it's a tough position, I think, mentally, right? Because you have 50% is a good marker, and anything else in like 50% is like, you wouldn't say that's super successful, maybe. But with this, I got to focus in on what I can control. And one thing that I've been working on is like on a comm app. I actually had the LeBron one on the other day. So I'll stretch, right? Another big thing with this mental reps is I'll stretch when I'm like taking my day off. I'll go through a 30-minute stretching routine, a little bit of yoga-ish. But I'll throw on a podcast, I'll throw something on where I can get focused and thinking about success. So LeBron and his talking about, all right, man, you're playing in these crazy arenas in front of all these bunch of people. Well, what's one thing that you always can control in that? And I preach this to my guys as a counselor too, is your breathing, right? And so I'm always taking that in when I'm stretching, just working on my breathing, calming down. And I find when I even go out there to shoot, if I'm not, 1 or 2, just take a calm, deep breath, get back in the zone. And it's funny, just to kind of talk about that too. It's when I was in college, I remember underclassmen was like, Sip, how do you stay like so locked in for shots? Kids are like 8 yards, you're dialed. You're not even like false stepping or anything like that. And I remember saying to him at that time, I was like, I just breathe, man. Like I don't even know, like I'm just breathing before the shot comes to relax. So those are all mental reps that I can do. And I really think, the more preparation that you put in, the more practice, it's how you get confident, right? It's how you get you feel good. If you haven't worked, you got to jump out there and play a game. I don't think you're going to feel very confident going into that. So as long as you put the work in, I think it all pays off in the end.
So with that, I guess to be at your level, I think being a goalie is probably the most competitive position, honestly, in sports. Definitely, I think in lacrosse, we have 7 teams in the PLL and 7 guys get to play. And it's crazy to be at that level. Like you truly are the best in the world. And you talk about your breathing, you talk about these different preparations. When did it start? Did someone tell you? Did you learn it from a coach, or was it something you sort of found in yourself from just experience? How did it start?
Yeah, honestly, I think music was the key to it when I was younger. Now looking back on it a little bit, like I would just dial in before games, like try to just zone out music that got me fired up, amped up, just dialed and like energetic. I think that's where it all started. Now thinking back on it, 13, 14, 15 years later, it's like that's really where it was. But I think it all came from, just playing sports at a young age. Like I just played a bunch of sports. You name it, I was playing it: soccer, hockey. I was on skates at 3. I wrestled. Wrestle taught me work ethic. So all those, like baseball, hand-eye coordination, all that type of stuff. Each of those sports brings its own element and its own pressure, right? Different things. You're up at bat. You got to hit. You got 3 strikes to kind of go there. Any hockey, my vision, physicality, like all that type of stuff. So I love playing sports. So I would watch guys, athletes kind of do it. Lundqvist growing up as a Rangers fan, hockey-wise, he was so dialed in. And you see his pregame rituals. He's juggling. He's not really like kind of talking to many people. He was just dialed. That's how I do it. Some guys are around the locker room. I've seen Jesse Schwartz, one of the best goalies to do it. He's just out there. He's loose. He's kind of going about it. So everyone's different. Me personally, I got to get dialed. I like to just focus in on that. I feel like once I get on that bus, we're going to the stadium, music's on, I'm not really kind of just trying to get my guys fired up, but I'm more so just focused. So I think that was early on, and I've been doing that since, I've been playing sports in middle school, like even before that. But I think it's really when I always had like a Biggie song that I would put on right before my high school games, and it was like a kind of like a routine on how to do that. And ever since then, it's music right before the game. We come in, halftime, I'll throw some music on, a couple of things to get me going again, and we go from there.
And one thing, kind of circling back to some things you were saying, just about like going back, like thinking back to like beginning of your career and stuff like that. How much because like talking to some other people we've talked to, like one thing that they've kind of brought up is like when they could start just like focusing on themselves, like they notice their game kind of like accelerate and not like focus on what other people are and stuff, or what other people are doing and stuff like that. When you were growing up, were there any goalies that you kind of like watched a lot to try to like emulate or anything like that? And then like as you progress through your career, do you still watch any other goalies, or is it just pure just focusing on shooters if you're watching film on anyone, or is it just watching film on yourself? Or what's that progression like for you?
That's a good question. I think growing up, it was all for me growing up wise, like focusing on me. I came from a high school where we didn't make the playoffs, man. I never made the playoffs in high school. We were not a very good lacrosse team, and we played the best of the best in Long Island there. Like Class A, we play in Massapequa, Syosset, Long Beach. So, we had a ton of fun, don't get me wrong, but we weren't winning many games there like that. So for me, I took that personally at 9th grade, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do what I can do, and I'm going to try to make as many saves as I possibly can do. So I think kind of growing up there, that was and still to this day, it's like, I'm going to do what I can do. I'm going to try to make as many saves as I can. I want to save them all. And I saved a lot in high school, man. I saved a ton in high school. But, I think as I was watching lacrosse, I watched guys like Jesse Schwartzman, I would say, Jay Pfeiffer, I would watch him, Matt Russell out of Navy. Those were the guys when I was kind of growing up in high school. They all brought a different element. Like Matt Russell, I'm watching his stuff the other day. He just was so energetic, kind of playing high arc, cutting off angles. Jesse, I watched him when I was in high school. I was fortunate enough to win a championship with him in Denver, 8 years later as his backup. And you learn from him, like he's just more of a style, push and transition. Like he loves to push the play, be a part of it as a goalie. Him, Jay Pfeiffer, I love Cuse. I love watching Mikey Powell just ball out. So he just brought, he's not a goalie, but he just brought that craziness to the game where I love watching it. It was got me fired up about lacrosse. So, I just stuck with that. So there were guys, and I think as I'm older now, Gittleman, Adam was a guy who is a couple of towns over from me. He was a year older, and I always heard about. So I always wanted to try to be better than him. He was the guy who you always heard about in the local talk. So he was a guy who really made me push my game up, and step my game up and really dedicate to my craft. And I worked with Coach Brazel, who now is the coach over at Stony Brook, doing goalies and stuff like that. He's the guy who pushed me and kind of got me going. But those are the other guys that I kind of mimicked and at least looked up to and wanted to be like. And I think in anything that you do, you got to believe that you're the best. And to this day, you could be confident and think that I'm the best in the game doing it. So, yeah.
Awesome. I think with you talk about all these guys, all these great players bring a different piece to their game, and you say like goalies, they all have their little quirky thing that they do. I think it's so interesting before games or their style of play. I guess in terms of just getting to this level, how is your game using like playing off your strengths and sort of improving your weaknesses? Where was your game? Obviously, maybe when you were in ninth grade, when you started to be focused on something. And how did your game improve? Like, were you more vocal? I mean, you're the last line of defense. Like, defensive guys, like, honestly rely on you a ton. How did you sort of improve on your game?
Yeah, so I think, there's like four really big parts, I think, like to being a really good goalie. And I think this is a good teammate. Well, good player here. I think one, as a goalie, you got to be a sheer stopper, right? I think that's the first thing there. And that I've always had, just in terms of reaction time. I think playing a lot of different sports really helped me with that. And you got to have like that fearless mindset. I got that from that type of stuff. So I would say sheer stopping ability, clearing game. I think that evolved, and I used it as I was a quarterback in high school. That helped me so much. So I think that's a huge part of it as well. The third part is probably being vocal, like you said, and being a leader out there. That really evolved in my game. I think as I got older, I remember going to tryouts. Coach Brazel, again, like for the Empire games. I was like to make the state teams, your region team. Probably the best thing you could do in high school for us. So I remember for tryouts, he's like, listen, man, you have the stopping ability. You're going to get noticed with that. Now it's like you got to be vocal. You got to let people know you're out there. Right? And I think that evolved as my game went on. I got to Fairfield. Coach Connery, over from Maryland, he was huge into that. I mean, like he was like, listen, understand our defense, make your saves, but see the ball, save the ball, but you got to know what's going on out there and help your guys come together as a unit, figure out what went on, and you kind of work from there. And then the fourth one I would say is kind of with everything is just how to be a good teammate as I grew up. Like I think I've always tried to pick my guys up. Even when I was a backup, I was always a starter kind of growing up in college there. Even when I was a backup, I wanted to pick my teammates up. So I think that I've grown in that way as well. But I worked more on my craft here, man. As I got older, you don't get any younger, right? Your body gets a little bit beat up. So you got to take a lot more care of it. I think that's what I learned as I got older here. I changed up my eating ways here the past few years. I felt really, really good. My workout routine, changed that up. So yeah, I would say those are the areas of how I really grew, and but I really went off of my sheer athleticism when I was younger, and then I just worked at it.
Going off of that, just things you've kind of changed in like the past 5-6 years or whatever. What would you say sticks out to you as like the biggest, most influential change in your habits or routines in the past 5 years?
Well, I think I got to go back a little bit before that, because when I was a sophomore in college, I think, Connor, you mentioned to me like what was a setback for you, maybe a failure that kind of like really changed you or helped you grow. I think I got to go back to my sophomore year of college. I came in as a freshman. I had to beat out 5 kids. I did that, and I had a really good freshman year. We were a solid squad there. Sophomore year came around, I got very, very complacent. That summer, I didn't really work out as much. I didn't really see that many shots. I came back in the fall, and I was like, just not playing well. Wasn't really confident. And there was a senior at that time, Joe Mary. He wound up going pro. He busted his butt, man. He was putting the work in when I wasn't. So I think I lost my starting spot. I was still having I had my ups and downs there throughout the fall. It came down to like a spring scrimmage. And he played better than me in that scrimmage, and he got it. And I think, like, looking back on that, that was a really, like, a reality check that I needed, because I think I was always able to kind of use my, like I said, my athleticism, my reflexes, my physicality, my competitive nature just to kind of succeed. And then I lost it. I mean, I didn't work, I didn't work at it, and nothing is given to you, right? So I learned that right there and then. So I think that lesson, I came back, I busted my butt, I worked harder than ever. I came back, started my junior and senior year, and, did great things, got drafted to Denver then. Go on to the pros. Now I think as you're a pro, you got to learn how to kind of keep that edge with an 8-month break in there, right? So you got to learn how to kind of do that. And I think that's the toughest part as a pro, as a goalie, that makes you succeed later on and longer in this league, is that you got to learn how to kind of turn it off in the off season, but at the same time stay in good shape. You're not having those practices every single day in the off season. So yeah, I would say in the past 5 years, I've really worked on, hey, never kind of like someone's on your heels. You can't really get complacent with it. You can't really sit back and just be like, hey, this is going to be given to me. So I just been working. My work ethic, I think, is really significantly changed the past 3 years. I would say even in Charlotte, there was a point there where I got a little complacent, but I was still playing well. But I think when I got to this PLL here, the past couple of years, I was focused, and I've been working on my eating and my workouts. And I've been, like I said, I'm probably in the best shape I've probably been in since this has all begun. And down to 190, I wanted to be a little bit lighter. So I would say my work ethic and just my eating habits in the past 5 years have significantly changed for the better.
What's your eating habits like? What are some things? Have you like experimented with any different like nutritional things and found anything that like didn't work out well for you? And like, how'd you kind of get to the nutrition habits that you have now? Like, how'd you kind of arrive at what you're at now that you're feeling like the best in your career?
So I think when I was coming out of Charlotte, when was that? It was about 3 years ago. I was like, probably the heaviest I've been. I was still working, like kind of putting the work in terms of lacrosse, getting shots, doing all that. So I felt good as a stopper, but I wasn't as quick. I was just feeling a little bit heavier. And I was like, listen, I didn't know at that point kind of what I wanted to do. And I was like, PLL opportunity comes around. I'm like, I'm going all in. I want to change this all up. I want to go fresh start here. I want to be as light as I possibly can be and feel good at this. So I think what I started to do is I looked at my eating habits. I worked with my strength coach. So he was putting me in through workouts that were like hour-long, like AMRAPs, as many rounds as possible. So I was doing a lot of that, keeping your high-intensity training, keeping your heart rate up. So I did a lot of that, and I was burning off, I was just sweating through those workouts, but still working out. So I was doing that, and then we started to go on, he put me on like a Whole30 diet, and I did it with my fiance, which was awesome because she's an awesome cook, so kudos to her. So she was the one who got on it with me. We bought some Whole30 books, and we ate it a lot of just clean. And really the biggest thing that I learned from that, maybe that was different from when I was younger, is what you put in your body is super important, right? So we went clean eating. So I went to, a lot of proteins, organic stuff, proteins. Then we went to the steaks, the meats, vegetables, fruits, a ton of eggs in the mornings. So we were eating very, very clean there. You're pretty much taking out carbs and dairy out of that. So I did that for about 3 months leading up to the season. Last year, I lost a ton of weight, felt really, really good with my workout regimen, where I was going like 5 days a week there. And then after the season, I kind of changed it up a little bit. I took that in there. I wasn't putting in, I realized, you look at a wrapper, what's in ingredients and stuff. So you start taking into account some of that stuff. But yeah, from there, now what I tried to do a little bit this past year, I was doing intermittent fasting. So I was eating clean still. I just wasn't eating as much throughout the day. So I was doing intermittent fasting from 12 to 8 o'clock. And you can eat pretty much as you want there, whatever you want. But it's those hours off, it gets your body into ketosis and it kind of starts eating at itself, all the stuff there. But yeah, there's a whole science behind it, but it has a lot of good benefits from what you hear. So I've been doing a little bit of a mix of that, trying to do the intermittent fasting, eating clean, carbs here and there. But that's where I'm at now, because you just need some of the carbs now with so much that you work out. You burn so much off. You need some of that energy. So I've just learned a whole lot about nutrition the past 3 years that I didn't even know about.
Yeah, I've been doing the intermittent fasting for like the past like 3 or 4 months. And like my biggest thing is just like my energy levels are just like so much more steady, I feel like. And I just feel like so much better in the mornings. Like just like getting that time off from eating before you go to sleep and like just letting your body recover. Like I feel so much lighter in the mornings, and just like going for runs in the morning. Like I feel way better, and just like I love it.
Even clearer. I think another big thing is like I was just thinking clearer. You know what I'm saying? Like I just felt like less sluggish. Maybe you get when you wake up in the morning. I was just ready to go. So it's worked out. I suggested. I mean, if people are always like, hey, looking for quick fixes, I'm like, no, you got to make a lifestyle change a little bit. So I've learned that too, but it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. So it helped you sort of in the mornings and I guess energy levels. Were there any like sort of noticing things that intermittent fasting did for you?
Yeah, I would say the energy levels were the biggest thing. You felt good, you felt clean. Like I felt clear, like I said, even mentally. So the drive was there, and I just felt like even in my workouts, I was like working out longer. You know what I'm saying? Like you even felt like I had more energy even in those things. So I wasn't getting as fatigued quicker.
So with all the things you've kind of added to your routines and like kind of changed or anything like that, as far as like whether it be specific with goalies or just lacrosse in general, are there any like bad recommendations that you hear a lot?
I think, well, I'm a big proponent, I should say, of playing a lot of sports. I hear like nowadays you get a lot of like, hey, we got to play lacrosse year round. I'm not necessarily a believer in that. I think I picked up a lot from other sports that I played, and I think burnout is real. I think that if you go at it too much, you kind of lose maybe some of the passion at it. But I think playing multiple sports helped me. Then I focused in on playing lacrosse in the summers and doing travel and all that type of stuff that gets showcased. So that's the way I kind of added more lacrosse into my sports life. But so I would say that's one thing. And I think goalie-wise, if you want to talk about mechanics and style and all that, there's a lot of different ways that you can play. I mentioned so many goalies before. You look at all the pros that are out there now, everyone's got their own little style. But I think the biggest things you'll see in guys is that you're attacking the ball. You're not afraid of the ball. And you're using your hands, you're using your whole body. Your first line of defense are your hands, your body's your second line of defense, so use it all. Be a good communicator and all that type of stuff. So I wouldn't necessarily say that's a bad thing or anything like that, but because everyone has their own style. But I think there's some big things in terms of like stopping the ball and being a leader out there that you want to have.
What do you think? What do you think has been your biggest weakness as a goalie throughout your career, and how have you kind of addressed that or try to think about that a lot?
It's a great question. I think as a goalie, I think the hardest spot is probably your off hips, your off lows. I just work at it. I mean, I work at all my spots. I just feel like you can always get better at every single spot. I mean, I look at my stuff. My stuff is like a stick high, off high, low, hip, low, bounce shots. So I think if you work at all that type of stuff, you're good. Being mentally tough is huge. I think you can always continue to work at that. I think when I was probably younger, I'd take it a lot on myself. I'd beat myself up, maybe not have a good next game. I've learned over the years here, it's like, listen, man, even if you're not having the greatest game, you don't know what save is going to make the game, win the game for you, right? So it's like staying mentally in it, mentally tough. I think I'm always working at that. So I think that's what guys have to kind of continue to do and realize, like, listen, you don't know which save. I remember coming down a few years ago against Chesapeake. It wasn't my best game. It was a tie game or something. We were up by 1, and I think Miles Jones comes down the alley, and I was like, all right, man, I got to make this save. This is the save that can win us the game, and I made the save, and we won. And I felt pumped about it, So it's like you can't get too high and you can't get too low.
Is there a sort of a moment, you said you sort of worked with trainers early on. Was there a moment that you're like, I can play in the college and I can pursue this going forward? When did that sort of happen?
Yeah, so that's actually a good story too, because I mentioned I played a lot of sports growing up. I was a baseball guy, kind of like when I was younger. I was like, hey, I'm going to go to play baseball in college. I always wanted to play a sport in college. What I knew what that was going to be, no idea. But thought it was going to be baseball. Playing baseball, a guy down the block from us, one of my friends, older than us, but kind of grew up with him. He, sick baseball player, didn't get any looks. I'm like, whoa. I don't know if I'll ever be as good as this guy. He was very, very good. So now I had to make a decision here. What am I going to do? 7th grade comes around. Am I playing lacrosse or am I playing baseball? So kind of stick with it. I'm like, all right, I'm going to play lacrosse. Everyone's telling me I'm good with lacrosse, so I'm going to stick with lacrosse. Did that, gave up baseball. I was playing it on the side there a little bit. But, yeah, so I would say, trying to think back to the original question, Connor, my bad, I forgot it.
Moment you realized.
So that's what I was going to say. Okay, my bad. So at that point, yeah, I was playing just middle school. Then I started playing in middle school, and I had like a 90-something save percentage in 7th and 8th grade. So at that point, coaches kind of heard about me around there. They're like, hey, this kid's pretty good. And then I jumped into a summer league, and this is kind of like the thing I really like. I was like, hey, I can play with kind of the best guys. I was in 8th grade, summer going into 9th grade. Me and my buddy Sean Rogers, he played at Notre Dame. And me and him, my dad just dropped us off at SUNY Farmingdale College by us. All the high school guys were playing, Chaminade, St. Anthony's, Half Hollis Hills, like all the big schools in that area were playing. Team always needs a goalie. So I'm like, hey, I'll be out there sitting there with my goalie stick. Team would come up to me. Remember, Shaman would come up to me, like, hey, you want to jump in here, play in this game? I was like, yeah, absolutely, I'll be there. As long as my buddy could play with me, they'd be like, yep. So I'd go out there playing this game as an 8th grader, playing with some of the best, guys that I'm hearing like we're even in college playing at Virginia and whatnot, and I'm making saves in them. So I'm like, wow, I could definitely do this. And I just worked at it. I think at that point, I was just like, hey, I'm like focused on this. I got a goalie coach in 9th grade, JP Brazel, like I said, worked with him throughout high school. And even he like was saying throughout all that, like, if you continue to work at this, man, you're going to be pretty solid at it. So my whole goal then at that point was like, hey, all I want to do, man, I would go over the railroad tracks, feet up, holding my nose, saying prayers. I was like, I just want to play Division I lacrosse. I remember that, like saying that in 9th grade, and I would be like, dude, I'm going to do this. Whatever I got to do this, I'm going to do it. So I would just worked at it in the summers, played my sports, stayed in shape in the off seasons, and still had that competitive nature there with all that. So I think that was the point early on where I was like, I can definitely do this. And then starting as a freshman in high school, going against the big schools, and I was making 30 saves a game against Long Beach. I averaged over 25 saves a game at that versus, like I said, the biggest schools in Long Island. I was like, I could definitely do it. I just need an opportunity, and I need a chance to do it. And I got one going to Fairfield, man, so it was awesome.
Would you say when you started making all the saves in high school, is that kind of like the moment? Like, obviously, earlier on, you realized you could be really good with your coach and stuff like that. But was high school when you like realized, like, all right, like I think I made it. Like I have the confidence that I think I'm one of the best guys in the country.
Yeah. I would say so. I actually do. I think it was like probably like 10th grade came around. 9th grade, you're just keeping your head above water. I was like, I just wanted to go out there, make an impact. Who knows? Had a really, really good year. I was all county that year. So I was like, wow, all right, I could play with some of the best guys in the county. And, you look at lacrosse, obviously Long Island is one of those main hubs around the country. So I was like, hey, I'm going to be playing versus a lot of guys that are going to be playing in college. And if I can stop these guys, I can do it. So I think that's where it came around. And then 10th grade, I was really like, hey, listen, I know I can hang with these guys. Now let's show everyone that I can make a bunch of saves. And that was my mentality. I'm going to go out here and just try to make as many saves as I possibly could against. And I love going against, like, hearing guys from Hicksville going to play D1 at Virginia or, whatever it may be. I love that type of stuff because I'd go out there and be like, no one expects me to stop this guy. They don't even know who I am. I'm at a school that didn't even make the playoffs. So I'm like, I'm going to go out there and just try to ball out and kind of like prove people wrong is the way I put it when I was in high school. It's like, I'm just going to prove them all wrong, man. I'm going to be the kid that comes from a small school and makes it. Just from work ethic and believing and just, working my ass off.
It's awesome. I think, especially for a goalie, you're going against a shooter that's sort of one-on-one type of style. Do you sort of focus maybe in high school, like you talked about, like, I know this guy's going to Virginia. Like, I want to save this guy's shot. Did you sort of prepare knowing what he would do, or would you sort of fall back on what you did best and be like, all right, I'm just gonna beat him?
So yeah, at that point, it was just me. I'm gonna do what I do best: react to the ball, step to the ball, make saves. That's how I was in high school. I think I really elevated, and you want to talk about growing my game a little bit. When I got to college, that was a big thing that changed. I started looking more at shooters, started looking at tendencies of guys, studying my craft too a little bit. What am I doing on shots from 5 to 10 yards versus 15 yarders? My hands changing or things different. So I studied my craft, and then I studied shooters, guys, what their tendencies were and whatnot. But ultimately, I really want to focus in on me because I can control me. So if I feel comfortable with me, and like one thing Coach Valance in college at Fairfield would always say to me is like, Sip, just make positive movements to the ball, right? They're going to score on you. But as long as you're not guessing and you're not kind of all over the place and you're just moving towards the ball and everything's there, if they beat you, you got to tip your hat to them every once in a while. So like I learned that and studied my craft more in college on film-wise, but high school, sheer reaction, sheer fearlessness. I'm just going to go out there, attack you. So now I have that balance between both of those. So, and that's kind of how I play.
That's great. In terms of like preparation, you talk about obviously looking at people's tendencies and you sort of focus more on yourself. If you had four hours a week to prepare, say, obviously the PLL season's down the 5-6 weeks. If you had 4 hours a week to train, what would you focus on for being a goalie?
So, and you know what? I kind of am doing this right now. So what I focus in on first and foremost is kind of being in shape, being ready to be out there. Second thing when you're out there is really like just one-on-one shooting, just like a step down. You know what I'm saying? Like where you're looking right down the barrel with the guy. The third thing, on the run, when guys are moving, right? So it's different for us. Those shots are different. And it's one thing that I preach to goalies all the time. It's like you can't have happy feet, right? Because you're not set then for a shot down the alley. So one thing that I really picked up in college and as I got older is like if a guy's sweeping down the alley or he's coming from GLE around, it's about holding your spot and being balanced enough where you're ready to attack the shot. And I would say if I can work on that a lot, and that's what I've been working on the past few weeks, is shots down the alley. Now what we did this past couple of weeks is coming around GLE, so in tight stuff. So how am I going to work kind of holding pipe and moving to my next spot and not giving up too much angle? So that's another part of it. What we're getting to now a little bit more of is in tight stuff, sheer reaction stuff. So I'm doing like off a bounce back to a shooter quick six type of stuff. So I'm tracking here and there. So that's the type of stuff that I would love to do. Outlet passes, that's another huge thing I think maybe goes underrated maybe with younger goalies. You have to be able to push the ball, especially in our pro sport here. It's all about transition. So it's making the save, pushing upfield, and kind of creating that transition. So I think that's a huge element of this that you got to work on. Yeah, and then all that, I just want to get some live shots. I think that's the toughest part, playing 6-on-6, 3s-on-3s. That's a whole different beast, but really what I'm trying to focus in on right now is tracking ball, making positive movements, attacking the ball.
Is there anything you do when you're practicing? Like obviously, how big of a difference is it when you're taking shots in a live game and have like people in front of you? And then B, to kind of, is there anything you do to kind of like mimic just having like traffic in front of you or anything like that, or anything to like distract yourself from like seeing a shot to like kind of emulate what it's more game like when you're just training by yourself?
Yeah, so traffic shots, I mean, I think you do need kind of a person to do that. Otherwise, what I'll do sometimes is I'll put like, when I was at school, we had the football pads, like a big football pad right in front of you just as a screen. So if you have a guy shooting on you, you can use that as a screen. They can shoot around that, or a garbage bag, garbage bucket, whatever it is, just that you could shoot around. But if you're by yourself, you're gonna go against the wall. Put that, put some type of barrier in front of you where you just got to see it and move around the object and kind of see yourself catching the ball. So you might lose it for a second, but you're trying to go at it. But when I'm out there with guys shooting, I'm really trying to put some type of barrier there. And I love moving. I feel like the biggest thing is when you get back into 6-on-6 is how fast the ball moves from guy to guy and around the field. So you got to be constantly, what I'm working on now is how can I move, track the ball, move back, and be set, ready to attack. And that's like a mental part of it too, but just more reps. So I think that I try to get 1 or 2, maybe even 3 guys out there. My little brother's back from college, so it's been amazing. So he could be a feeder. So I'm tracking the feed, shot comes around an object from up top, and we're working on that.
So for a 13-year-old kid, I think for a goalie, you talked about getting live shots. And I think it's hard for somebody to ask questions when you're young, or ask for a favor. For a goalie, like, you need somebody to shoot on you. Did you ask guys, or were you sort of like hesitant to go to guys, be like, hey, can you shoot on me? How was that?
Yeah, so I would always find the oldest guys. I love playing against the older guys. You know what I'm saying? Like the high school kids. I'd be in middle school. I'd be like, all right, I'm going to go to the park. Hopefully there's some guys there. And there's always like older guys shooting around. Just jump in the cage. You need a goalie. Yeah. I feel like I've never been turned down where it's like, no, I don't want a goalie in the cage. I think it's always like, yeah, jump in there, man. We'll definitely take a goalie. So I think it's just going out there, finding guys to shoot in you. Like I said, I got dropped off at a field hoping that a team would would pick me up just to jump in a game. So any shots that you can get them. If they're slow, whatever, you can still work on your fundamentals. If they're fast, awesome. I was always looking for the biggest guys that can shoot hardest. I had a guy, Jay Pyre, one of my best friends, older brothers that played at Army, West Point. So as much as I could, I'd be hitting him up and be like, yo, let's go. He'd pick me up. We'd drive to the park, bucket of balls. He would just unload on me all the time. And I was in like 8th grade, and this guy's going to West Point. So I was like, again, if I'm going to be able to compete versus the best, I got to go against the best. So anyone around you that you can do that with, do it.
Similar question, kind of going back, 13-year-old. If you could talk to yourself when you were back 13, 14 years old, before you really knew you were going to be successful or anything like that, hindsight 2020, what would you tell yourself? The number one thing that you tell yourself to do the same, and number one thing that you tell yourself to do differently?
To do the same, I'd say just be fearless. I think I was fearless, and I was just like, I didn't care if I got hit with shots and didn't care what people would think. So I think my mindset was awesome there in terms of that. Working-wise, I mean, something I can work on kind of when I was 13. Not be so hard on myself. I think I put a lot of pressure on myself when I was younger, and you're going to fail in this sport, man. You're going to fail in anything. So I think that you learn a lot from that type of stuff, but I put a lot of pressure on myself. But I don't know, maybe that helped me and drove me a little bit more. But I think that would probably be it. And just, I wish when I was 13 I knew like what you put in your body can really make a difference. You know, like it really, really makes a difference in terms of how you perform. Someone told me once, and I don't even know where the hell I got it from, but it's like your body's like a car, right? Depending on what your car is, you treat it like a Ferrari right now, right? You want to treat it like a Ferrari. You're not going to go to the gas station and fill it up with regular gas. You're going to fill it up with the super, right? So that's like kind of how I see my body now. It's like, eat well. I mean, if I'm going 80% eating good, 20% bad, all right, I'll live with that. But you want to eat probably better than you can and treat your body. You only get one body, right? So, I mean, you want to treat it good. So I think if I knew a little bit about that, I love like the junk food, the ice cream, and all that type of stuff. I mean, it is what it is when I was younger, but that's it. I would say I would just change that up. But yeah, man, it's been good. I feel like I'm a big believer, man. Stuff happens for a reason, right? So I mean, you kind of why it all panned out is why I am where I am right now.
And you mentioned like you all like never cared about getting hit with shots or anything like that. Like one thing for me, looking back, like obviously, you know, youth lacrosse, like if we didn't have a goalie, like no one would want to play goalie because it's like I don't want to get hit with a shot. Were you always like, is it true? Is it just like a slightly being psychotic thing where it's like you're okay with getting hit with shots? Or is there like a time, do you just like, as a goalie, do you like just get used to it eventually and you're just like, all right, I'm just going to get hit with shots? Or does it still suck and you just like don't really register it? Or like what's the progression of getting hit with shots like?
Yeah, I think you need to be, like I said, you need to be fearless a little bit. Everyone always says like, oh, goalies have a screw loose. And it's funny, they always tell me like, Sip, you're probably the most sane goalie that I've seen. But like deep down, man, I'm like, I'm pretty insane too. When a shot's coming at me, I put my whole body into it. It's like I don't even care. You know what I'm saying? Like I'll sell out for it. I think it hurts. I mean, when you take time off, and I think as a pro now, when you take time off, I train a lot with the softies. Like early on when I'm getting back into it. That way, so if I get hit, it's whatever. Now as I'm leading up, I'm going just into full rubber balls, actual lacrosse balls. So like I'm feeling that again, you know, like. But I think as time goes on, you do build a little bit of immunity to that pain. Some of these guys, man, they shoot over 100. These things are going to hurt all the time. I think you in game, the adrenaline's so hard, like so much, you're just like, all right, sometimes you even forget you just got hit and you're like, oh man, what just happened? And you get out of there and I look in the ice bath and I'm like, dude, I'm like covered in welts. But I think as you get older, it's a little, you start feeling them a little bit, but I'm getting right back into it again where it's like, you got to manage your body. You got to ice it. You got to take care of it. But I'm still kind of, and I think that's probably when you got to hang it up. When you're not willing to really go out there and step in front of a shot and not care, you can't be in the cage anymore. I really do believe that. So I feel like you just got to still continuing to be fearless. If I get hit, I get hit, man. Just save. Hopefully it doesn't hit me and go in. I want it to hit me and we keep it out of the cage and we go the other way with it. So that's kind of how I feel.
And then similarly, this is just coming to my head now. Just like looking back, I feel like there's like moments in practice where if someone like cranks a shot on a goalie, like there's like certain moments where a goalie just like gets pissed. Like, why the hell are you shooting? Like, why are you ripping the shot? Like at this point in practice on me like this. Is there some type of like etiquette from a goalie's perspective of when it's like not okay to rip a shot at you?
Dude, I think inside the 4 yards, I hate it. But I mean, like, and it's funny. You go like, everyone wants to score in a pro goalie. So you go somewhere like, you know, your clinic, camps, whatever. Like, hey, they come up 3 yards out, crank it. I'm like, all right, man, I don't want to stand in front of this and just get eaten, right? You know, just eat this right here from 3 yards out. So I think the etiquette there is 5 yards in, placement, right? Placement doesn't need to be power there at that point. So, yeah, that's what I would say about that.
All right, our mental note for Waterdogs practice.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and then the best ones is like you'll get drilled in the kneecap, the thing will shoot 50 yards out, and you're like, dude, didn't even hurt me. Hit pure bone. You're like, whatever. Guys are like, ooh. But I remember I had my one roommate, my college roommate, so I still give him crap to this day, man. I don't think there was a practice he didn't hit me. I don't think he was trying to, man, but he would just, it was like a magnet for me, man. So I'd walk out of there with like 4 bruises from him every day. I'm like, dude, I don't think, who's paying you off or whatever it is, man? What's going on? Someone's trying to hurt me here.
Do you treat your welts or anything like that? Do you do anything? Is there like does it affect your?
I mean, this is gonna be, I think, be a little bit of an issue. You know, we're gonna have to manage it throughout this tournament here. But I mean, like, usually you had 6 days to manage, right? A bruise, and some of these bruises are you know, they're deep and they're pretty ugly looking. So I mean, once you work with them, yeah, I mean, you got to treat them, you got to ice them. That's a huge thing. Is really like you got to ice them. You can't just like, hey, whatever, it'll go away. You got to treat it. So I think that's huge. I got like this little ice ball. It's a metal ball. Keep it in the freezer. You know, just kind of rub out some of those bruises. That's huge. Ice baths are huge, man. I'm in there all the time. What else? It was really bad when I had a few years back, man. I got hit 3 weeks in a row in the same spot in the inner thigh. I had to pad it up after a while, but it turned into a rock-solid hematoma. I think James Pinnell, man, it was like, I forgot who the shooters were, but it was like 3 weeks in a row. And I remember it was James Pinnell was the last one. We were winning the game, and it was like the last shot of the game. And it was kind of like, I don't want it to go in. I don't care if we're winning or whatnot. I'm selling out, exposed my inner thigh, got drilled there. Just saw stars, and I had to treat that one for about 6 months. That one sucked. That one was a tough one. So now I have my little things where, you know, I got a little bit of an inner pad that I might wear on my thighs there, but nothing really too crazy. You just got to treat them, man. And here's my biggest thing with that: you don't want to get hit, catch it.
That's a good point. What as a goalie, how do you kind of set your goals, and how have your goals yourself kind of evolved like throughout your career?
Yeah, that's an awesome one. Early on, make saves, make as many saves as I possibly could. I think my goals now are and I learned, like, you know, throughout the college years and pro years, it's like you got to be able to manage games, and you know, especially in the pro game, it's a game of swings. Team can go on a 6-goal run. And I've seen teams, you know, I was with Denver. We came back from a 13-goal deficit one year. So I think as you grow, you just got to kind of stay like just mentally kind of locked in. Yeah, so I don't know if that answered the question.
What was it again? I'm sorry.
What was that?
What was the question again?
How you kind of set your personal goals as a goalie, and how they've kind of evolved.
Yeah, so I think it was early on, like I said, it was kind of just making saves. As I got older, I wanted to win games, so you got to manage games. So I think that's the biggest thing is, like, I'm confident that I can make every save. I know now that I can't. When I was younger, I think that I always thought I could make every single save, regardless if it was from 2 yards or 15. So I'm confident with that, but now as I got older, it's just, you know, manage games, win games. You don't know which game it's going to be. I want to be a good teammate, be a glue guy. That's another huge thing I think goes a long way. I want to boost my guys up. It's not just about me. It's about the guys around me. You're a unit, right? You're a team. So you're only going to be go as far as, you know, number 1 through number whatever on your roster. Everyone plays a part in that. So I think as I've grown older, you just got to learn to be, like I said, a teammate and through the good and through the bad, man. You can't be too high, can't be too low, but and my goals too is just stay hungry. I think like you got to just keep working at it, man. I never want to get complacent because like I said, when I was a sophomore in college, I lost that. And I understand that things can get taken away from you in an instant. So I love the opportunity. I'm very fortunate, very grateful that I have an opportunity to still do this. So I'm just going to try to run with it, man, and just do the best I can do. At the very least, I can look in the mirror and say, hey, man, I put the work in, I put the time in, I did the best, doing the best I could do.
Yeah, I feel like being a goalie, like having the personal goals of making as many saves as possible, like no one on your team is ever gonna argue that one for the greater good of the whole team. Going through your career too, did you have any like mentors that stick out to you that you like kind of leaned on, and like what did you go to them for? And then at the point you're in your career now, where you're kind of like an established guy more, or do you still have any mentors in your athletic career or just personal life that you really lean on at all?
I think pro-wise, going back, I was in such an awesome position to get drafted where I got drafted and play with the guys that I played with. I was a young buck who learned a lot from the older vets, guys like Jesse Schwartzman, who like I honestly studied under him the first 3 seasons I played pro. He was awesome, man. He's a friend. He's an awesome guy. Anthony Kelly, face-off, right, for us there. Really showed you kind of what it's like to be a teammate, take care of the guys around you, and I'm talking the younger guys to the older guys. Take care, look out for one another. So those are some pros man, there's so many that I can think of from teams. Earhart would be another one, like even in there, and like he's a young guy, younger than me, but I like loved the way he was kind of like a team guy who could just kind of mesh with everyone together. Drew Adams was an awesome one to work behind. He really kind of showed me. I've always knew he was like an amazing goalie. It's really cool when you work behind the guy and you kind of see his mentality and what he does pregame and stuff like that. He was a really, really good one. JP Brazel was like a really, really good mentor for me. He was my goalie coach. To this day, like we still talk all the time. He's an awesome, awesome one. Coach Whitley, he was at Fairfield. Coach Valance, they were at Fairfield, my goalie coaches. Those are guys that really helped me out as well. So going back to some awesome coaches, Coach Connery, Coach Cope. These are all, I just had awesome coaches throughout there. And I have an awesome support system in my family. I think my family, like, super close to me. My cousins, my brother, my sister, my parents, they're just biggest fans. So I think you got to have a good support system around you as well. So I'd say I'd see them as mentors for me as well. They lead me to stay in the right path. So yeah, I mean, I've had some awesome Tony Seaman, man. I can't forget him too. He was an awesome GM of mine who showed you that lacrosse can open more doors in your life, man, coaching wise and all that type of stuff like that. So there's a lot of good mentors, good coaches out there that do great things, man, that have given me, endless opportunities here. So I'm very grateful to them.
Yeah, I think I can attest, just being around, being a young guy, I think just there's so many great people, and that's what makes you stick around, being a lacrosse player, just the community aspect, and I think it continues to grow. So I guess I'd ask you, if you had the resources to help, obviously you're helping grow this game, where do you see lacrosse in the next 10 years, and how would you help it grow as much as possible? If you had the resources, unlimited resources to do so.
Man, it would be an international game. The whole world would be playing it. I think it's going to get there eventually. I really, really do. You can see more teams were jumping into the World Games a few years back, right? So I think it's growing. Guys, you have so many awesome ambassadors in this sport right now, of all ages. Even the guys who are behind the scenes doing stuff, that are older, that are helping youth, that you see coaching and stuff like that. So I think that's going to go a huge, huge way. You have, like I said, the guys who are the face of the game right now. Connor, you being one of them. A lot of these guys, Scott Ratliff going overseas, Gittleman going overseas. You see the guys going over to Japan, Gibson and those guys. I think this game is going to grow. You get a chance to play with guys like Drew Snyder, Chris O'Doherty over in Seattle doing stuff over there. That's growing in the top west corner of the country. You got guys like Bach and Brent Adams, those guys out in Colorado. And I'm sure I'm missing a ton of names here, but there's so many guys around the country that are work in different pockets, and I think as it fully expands, Eric Law doing, working with City Lax over in Denver too, right? Bringing the game to the inner city and building more guys who maybe are less fortunate, giving them a shot to actually get a chance to play. It's California, there's so many guys out there doing that. So I think I lived in Florida for a bit, and I was coaching lacrosse down there. I felt like even when I was down there for a year, I wanted to make an impact to help those guys that I was working with. And to this day, those guys still text me, "Hey, coach, thank you, man," and who are playing in college now. So I think the little things that you can do go a long, long way with this sport. I think we're going to grow it, man. I think that, it incorporates so many different types of sports. So you don't have to be, you could be a small guy, you could be a big guy, you could be a large guy, you could be a muscular guy. Any shape or size, there's a spot for you on the lacrosse field, and you can make it work. So I think that's what is really, really, really exciting about it, that you can get some guys who may have never even seen the sport. As we grow it, it just needs the exposure. So as we go to these spots that maybe have never seen lacrosse, guys are starting to pick it up. You're hearing more guys getting recruited out of the Midwest, all this type of stuff. And I think eventually, man, I really, really do think it'll become an international game. It's got it all there. So we'll take it one step at a time, but I think it's in the right direction.
What for just like a young kid coming up, maybe they don't have the opportunity to play pro, but they still obviously love the sport and stuff like that. What kind of opportunities do you see out there? Like, what doors have kind of presented themselves for you to kind of open up if you wanted to or not? But as a kid that maybe doesn't have the opportunity to play pro, but would still love lacrosse and still want to get involved, what kind of opportunities have you seen out there that have presented themselves to you, and which ones do you kind of take up and which ones have you kind of passed up?
Oh yeah, I think, listen, if you enjoy doing something, do it. You're going to be able to find it. It doesn't matter what level it's going to be. You can find a pickup game somewhere. You can find a summer league to jump in on, travel teams. Do it. Play it. Do what you got to do. Yeah, I kind of see it everywhere. I mean, I see it in summer leagues. I think that, I'm trying to think of where else do you see it, right? Sorry, say it again. I'm sorry, my thoughts are all over there.
For someone that maybe loves lacrosse but doesn't get the opportunity to play pro, what kind of opportunities have you seen to stay involved in lacrosse, and what doors have kind of opened up to you that maybe you did or didn't take? But for someone that just wants to stay involved past playing pro, past playing college, what do the opportunities look like that you've seen?
Got it. Yeah, so I think, like I was saying there, it's you can find any level of lacrosse. So if you continue and you enjoy playing it, play it. I think that you can find it out there. I see it in summer leagues all over the place that guys are playing. I'm going to play in NYAC and stuff like that. There's other things that you can play in, but coaching. I think coaching is the biggest door that it opens up to for me personally. I got up there and I never really thought I would be a coach after college. And then Tony Seaman gave me an opportunity to go to Florida and coach down there, and I loved it. It got me my first job in working in a school, and I had an opportunity to start coaching lacrosse. I never would have thought 10 years ago I'd be, coaching lacrosse year round. So I think that's a huge thing. The networking, the brotherhood that you build playing sports, playing athletics, you have connections all over the place. I hear guys getting business jobs there. So, I mean, just because you're not a pro doesn't mean that it can't open more doors. I think it can open up doors endlessly. Coaching, meeting people, friendships, all that type of stuff, man, it opens up a ton of doors.
And then I don't know if you're a huge social media guy or not, but for a young goalie, are there any social media accounts that you follow and kind of extract a lot of value out of, or any, whether it be in lacrosse or just with life and just motivation, just any social media accounts that a young goalie might want to follow just to kind of see what they're doing or just extract value from, or anything that you extract value from on social media?
Yeah, so I'm going to be starting mine up too. I'll be pumping it out there, some of that content. It's going to be goalie.elite.lacrosse. So I'm working on some of that content now, but some of the other guys that I like to follow is, I think Lax Goalie Rat, I've done some interviews with him. I think he's done a great job of pumping out a lot of content. Hand-eye coaches is another one that I watch. Even though it's, for multiple sports, I think you can pull a lot of things out of there. what is Gittleman's, I think, his Lax Goalie Network. He has got a ton of stuff on there. I've been watching a lot of his. I love how he pumps back to, some of those guys in the 80s and 90s goalies that are playing out there. I'm going to forget his name. There's some other inspirational coaches. He's a former Marine. I can't think of his name right now. He's a motivational speaker, too. He gets me going. I'll have to find that one out there. But, positive psychology is a lot of stuff like that. So, yeah, I would say some of those. Who else is doing some goalie stuff? There's like a crease to crease. So, yeah, and I just try to pick up some of the other guys. Scotty's putting up a bunch of stuff there. I like to pick and choose some things from other areas and create kind of my own stuff because I have my ways too, and I kind of preach some of my stuff. Everyone's different, but I like to keep it fresh. I like to keep it fun.
Love that. It's goalie.elite.lacrosse.
Yeah, so we're going to get that going here. Company that I built, I've learned so much from some, like I said, so many great coaches. And I'm just very fortunate enough where I can push this back out to guys who maybe, look, I don't know, the goalie is such a specialized position. I feel like there's not a lot of goalie coaches out there, right? And I've learned so many little things just from playing and from guys who've gone through it that I want to share and spread. So I love the mindset part of it that you spoke about earlier. I love trying to be positive. I preach it all the time in school when I'm teaching, but grit, relentlessness, all that type of stuff goes a huge, huge way in terms of overcoming failure and kind of staying positive, and staying optimistic. So I try to stay with all that type of stuff, and that's the kind of content that I want to push out there. I am a little bit, I kind of keep my circle close personally with my social media, just the way I've always been. I kind of keep my circle small, but that'll be a platform where I want to kind of push out to the public a little bit more and kind of, like I said, if I can give back and help and inspire, that's the whole goal of it. So I'm gonna look for that kind of coming up here in the next month or two.
Exactly. I think kids would love to hear that. I think the more they can consume is the better for them. So I completely agree. I guess talk about positivity. I guess during these times, Corona, maybe from March on to here, were there positive takeaways? I know you're starting this business now. Was that one of them or other things?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, again, I love that, Connor, because, as an educator, I try to preach it all the time to these guys. It's tough. I think everyone had a tough time going through all this for whatever reasons. Everyone has their own personal things that they may have experienced through this. But how do you stay positive in it? And what can you do? I think you needed a goal, right? So my goal here is I want to be a great counselor during the day. I want to work for my lacrosse and be a good person, after that. So lacrosse is definitely a big part of that too. It's just kind of balancing your lifestyle. So, what else? Being positive with it. I'm sorry, Connor, I'm all over the place. I forgot it again.
Positive takeaways from Corona. Is there anything that you weren't doing like before COVID and the lockdown that you kind of started doing now and you're going to continue to do afterwards?
Yeah, so I think working on the business was a good one. This is kind of a silver lining in all this, all while everyone's going through. It's like, how do you stay positive? You want to kind of work on some little independent projects. So yeah, this was one where I felt like I had some time to create some content, get some videos out there. And as I'm getting training now for my season, I wanted to record it all and kind of put it all together and show some of the drills for some guys who may have never seen this all before. So that's been a little bit of a fun project that I've had. Been cooking a little bit more. Honestly, that's something that's been fun. Getting outside, going for more runs, like just enjoying nature and all that type of stuff. You take a step back to reflect a little bit. That's been great, but having little goals, little things that I want to work toward keep me busy, so you're not just kind of sitting there staring at the walls. So just try to stay busy with it.
This is kind of switch gears. I mean, it's similar, but what keeps you up at night? And when you feel overwhelmed, what do you like to do to kind of unwind?
Yeah. Feeling overwhelmed, I think, honestly, recently it's been kind of getting the workout in. I feel like that's been a huge one for me. Stretching, like I said, if I'm kind of feeling overwhelmed, and kind of just put it on a podcast and listen to some of that. Movies, huge into that. Netflix, obviously, it's been there. So I think you can't overwhelm yourself. You got to give yourself some breaks here and there. But Yeah, and I think music too. Music kind of just helps you kind of get away a little bit and kind of reset and recharge. So those are some of my ways.
And then what keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night? Might sound corny, but guys like outworking you, and stuff like that. But I think that kind of keeps you up, and you just want to be prepared. I'm like excited. I think it's more excitement now. As the days get numbered for lacrosse, I'm working towards it now. I just kind of want to showcase myself a little bit and get out there and start playing and being with the guys. So I think that excitement's been the anticipation kind of leading behind us all. Yeah, because you didn't even know if we were going to have a season. I think that maybe kept me up a little bit too, not knowing if we were going to have it. Then when you get the green light, you're like, all right, man, let's work at this and let's do this. Now it's time to showcase. But, yeah, I think that's it. You can control what you can control, and you go from there.
And then something else, just kind of looking forward a little bit. Is there anything that you're thinking about, like trying to openly experiment with your training or anything in your lifestyle that you kind of want to try out and just experiment with yourself in the future?
I think, like I said, I've been outdoors a whole lot here. I've been trying to biking. Honestly, that might be one thing that I kind of want to get into right now. Something that I could do outside a little bit more of. Goalies I'm not a huge runner. I don't love running, but I do it. But I think that might be something that I kind of I've been looking at a little bit here. But just coaching, I think, like, how can I elevate my coaching platform and that type of stuff, and kind of getting and just helping kids, especially during a time like this. It's like, how can you influence people still here? And that's been something that I've been trying to work on. So I think that's what I want to continue to work on moving forward here out of all this. And it's something that's been like a daily goal for me.
And then similarly, just going off the head here, is there anything, looking back on your career, is there anything that you experimented with or tried to implement into your life routines, training, that ended up being like a bad investment of time and you ended up having to kind of subtract out?
No, I think that just really, again, I really am a believer, like it kind of all happens for a reason. I just think that maybe some of the times when like I was relying on my skill, I could have put more time in, and stuff like that. But you could always go back, and hindsight's always 20/20, right? So I mean, like, I had a bad game there, I shouldn't have done that and whatnot. But I think it's a lifestyle. Kind of going back to that, you got to just kind of be having good habits, right, and kind of doing stuff on a daily basis that's bettering yourself. So as long as you can continue to do that, man, I think you'll be all right, and not really dwell too much on kind of stuff in the past.
What do you think? Start wrapping it up a little bit here, Connor?
I think this is our last one.
Dude, I hope this has been good. I don't know.
This has been great, dude.
Honestly,
getting the goalie perspective, honestly, everything you've done. So I think definitely a lot of nuanced stuff that we're hearing and a lot of new stuff. So this is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully we've done an all right job on our end. Like I said, it's still pretty early here for us, and we're kind of just spitballing to see what happens. But yeah, I mean, this has been great.
No, it's been awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Besides the 2 times I had a few brain farts, but it's been good, man.
All right. So last question we've been asking people: if you could put something on a billboard for billions of people to see every single day, what would you put on it?
Probably be, oh man, something with have fun. Have fun would definitely be on it. What do I tell my guys all the time? It's more like, probably work hard, be fair, have fun. Something like that. And something like go get it. I mean, I'm a big believer in go get it done. So I'd probably put those. You got to work hard at it. You got to make sure that you are putting your time in. But you got to have fun doing it all too. So I think that's a big thing, right? Like I said, don't get too high, don't get too low. You got to find that in between.
So
I don't know if that's a straight answer. I don't know if that's a straight answer. That's tough, man.
It's work hard, have fun, go get it.
Yeah, I like that. That's good with it.
All right. All right. We'll write that down for you.
It's good shit. Well, Seth, this was great. I
Yeah.
appreciate the time. Honestly, again, this was awesome. A lot of questions were nailed to you, so thanks for answering, and appreciate it. Will I see you Saturday?
Yeah, Saturday I'm gonna get there. I was talking to Earhart. I'm gonna get there. Brent's gonna come too. So yeah, man, I'll be there. It's gonna be like 8:30, 9 o'clock.
8:30, 9 o'clock. Yeah. Who else is coming? You said?
Brent Adams.
Oh, awesome. Dope.
I gotta hit up McClancy. I saw on the chain. I think McClancy was added to that, so I think he might be coming in too.
Yeah, I'm gonna shoot him a text as well.
Hey, who else is gonna come? Madelon's gonna come too. Goalies wise, I think Madelon was on there.
Yeah, so I was actually shooting on Madelon this morning, and he said, yeah, he's free. I think it's just you right now, right?
Yeah, it was me, Madelon, and Earhart said possibly the Notre Dame kid. I forgot his name.
Yeah.
So Notre Dame goalie. So I would love that because I'm not obviously I don't want to get too beat up here, and obviously don't want to get an injury, but I want to get some reps because I just need some more live action type of stuff.
Yeah.
It'd be awesome to get before we get there.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, it'll be good, man. I'm super pumped about it. That'll be fun.
Document.
All right. Well, Sip, thanks again.
No, let me know if you need me for anything else. And moving forward here, man, just keep me posted, man. If you need like when the drills and all that type of stuff happen, when you start getting the lesson, let me know. Keep me posted, man. Whatever I can do to help.
Yeah, and on both sides too. When you sort of launch this business too, we're happy to promote and go through there. So
let's do it, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I really appreciate it. This is great.
Sam, bro, thank you.
Yeah, man. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, man. Connor, man, I'll talk to you soon. I'll see you Thursday on the call. Saturday for sure.
Damn right. I'll see you
All
soon.
right, big dog. Let's go. Go Waterdogs.
Let's go, baby.
Go Waterdogs.
There it is. There it is. Love it.
Let's go.